Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the July 22nd, 2020 Pittsburgh Board of Public Education and Pittsburgh Mount Oliver Intermediate Unit virtual legislative meeting. Would everyone please rise so that we can salute the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. We'll begin this afternoon with a presentation on on the health and safety plan. Are all in to open our schools. Miss Jones, are you leading this, or is Dr. Hamlet leading this?
Hi, Ms. Wilson, this is Ms. Capretta.
Ms. Capretta, go ahead, Ms.
And I have the honor of doing this this evening.
Okay.
So I'm the Chief Operations Officer, and we're here to discuss the all-in to reopen our schools, the health and safety plan. So here's our highlights in our agenda. The type of opening that we are going to have. This will cover like some of the research that we've done, some of the all-in recommendations, and the background. And also additionally, we are going to, this kind of follows in order of the safety plan itself. So we will be speaking about the pandemic coordinator and the team. We will be discussing the key strategies, which include the cleaning, sanitizing, disinfecting, and the ventilation systems, social distancing, monitoring of students and staff health, and as well as just some basic other considerations for students and staff. Number 4, we will be discussing briefly some professional development, as well as discussing the communications. So for the health and safety plan, all in this, we had the all-in subcommittees that did a lot of this resources and reviewed a lot of these items. The Center for Disease Controls, we used a lot of this guidance for the monitoring of students and staff section. We also, a wonderful document, the Pennsylvania School Reopening Task Force report. And this was a group effort, and there was a lot of great details and resources in this as well. And then as well as the Pennsylvania Department of Education, we used a COVID-19 checklist and recommendations for opening of school. We also looked at a report issued by the AFT on opening schools in America, as well as guidance from the American Academy of Pediatrics. Also, we showed our draft plan to the Allegheny County Department, Dr. Bogan, as well, and she provided feedback, and we reflected we reflected her changes within that document. Per the Department of Health, according to the Department of Education, each school entity we must create a health and safety plan that will provide local guidance for reopening of schools and the activities in those schools. The plan is to be informed by the governor's reopening of Pennsylvania recommendations. This plan needs to be approved by the board prior to opening of schools, and then the plan needs to be made public and posted on the website prior to opening of schools as well. The health and safety plan should be tailored to meet the unique needs of each school entity, and we're all different in across the state. We are supposed to consult with local health agencies, which we have. Actually, we on our subcommittee on the health and safety subcommittee, Lori Ann Brink was from the Allegheny County Health Department, was on that team. We must be flexible and we must be able to adopt to changes, moving from green to yellow to red, etc. We also must provide professional learning and communications to all our stakeholders, and we will discuss this in more detail later in the presentation. We may consider adopting new policies or modifying existing policies if we feel it's necessary. And we must always monitor throughout the year the plan, and that's why we have the pandemic coordinator team, that they will be, monitoring this and then making recommendations or updates as needed. Next slide, please, Dave. So this is sort of this is Governor Wolf's administration, how they categorize the reopening into 3 broad categories. I assume a lot of us are well aware of these. There's the red phase where the schools must remain closed. All large gatherings are prohibited. This is basically where we were in late March and April. And now the yellow phase where schools may reopen, and the green phase where schools also may remain opening. The template actually had sections for each of the yellow and green categories. So here is a layout of what we are proposing. So first, we've been talking about a blended in-school model, which would be a mix of in-school instruction and e-learning. We would do this in cohorts. So we would have the AA cohort and the BB cohort. We also have where parents could opt into the full e-learning by choice. And this would be teacher-led instruction, both synchronous and asynchronous learning. And then below we have where we would be full-time e-learning for all. And that would be, if it was decided that it was, not safe at any time to be opened up, obviously in the red phase, as well as the yellow or the green. So this was a cross-functional effort. The team that helped develop these teams, they were recommendations that we used for this plan, and there was the superintendent's office, the Office of School Performance, the Safety Committee, the Health Services Department, the PFT, Allegheny County Health Department, DHS, and as well as parent-led organizations. They will be part of this pandemic team, and they've also helped develop this plan as well. Again, the team will monitor. The important things are here is we will monitor the implementation of this plan. We will monitor local health data to assess what to do with maybe any potential adjustments, and any adjustments that need to be made, we will do that throughout the school year. So these are the 3 categories. There's actually 4 categories in the template, but tonight we're only going to go over 3 of the key strategies, policies, and procedures. The first grouping is related to cleaning, sanitizing, disinfecting, and ventilations. The next category is called social distancing and other safety protocols, and then monitoring students and staff health. And the last one that's not here is other considerations, which you would see in the detailed template. So we have procedures for cleaning. That would include sanitizing all of our and disinfecting all of our buildings with special attention to high-touched areas. We have, Tom Meter's team did a lot of research on this way back in February. We had all the necessary sanitizing and chemicals. We have them, and we will continue to order them. There will be daily cleaning of all the classrooms, hallways, and other areas. We are also related to drinking water. And we know we need, especially if it would be hot in, the fall or in the spring, we're going to need fresh drinking water for our students. So, but we will be turning off the bubblers. That's the part of the fountain that bend your head down and drink from. We are going to turn those off, obviously for safety reasons. But we will be having all the bottle fillers working. So, and we will be providing all our students refillable bottles. We will be doing deep cleaning on Wednesday of each week. That works in with that AA cohort. Then we would have Wednesday cleaning, and then you would have your BB cohort. We would also try where possible, where it's not against fire regulations, to keep our classroom doors left open for better ventilation. And we are ensuring, been working on this for the last several months, that all our ventilation equipment is up and running, that we made sure we have a supply of replacement filters. We are marking down when we change the filters, and we will be checking them regularly. And if they need changed, they will be. That was actually one of the health department's comments, asking exactly in more detail what we were doing with the filters. We also are working with OSHA and CDC approved disinfecting solutions, supplies. A lot of these supplies could be the same chemical, but they could be used in different dwell times and used with different delivery models, whether it be a backpack sprayer or just a simple hand sprayer. And then we are also, with our bus drivers will be disinfecting with a spray bottle in between each route. Mrs. Megan Patton has already produced a video on this. For Obama, we had an inquiry about the ventilation systems, and this is very important, that all our mechanical ventilation systems, we have air handlers, and these air handlers circulate fresh air throughout the building all the time, and we will make sure that those systems are working properly. Next slide. AABB cohort schedule. I spoke about this previously. AA is Monday, Tuesday, BB is Thursday, Friday. All our classrooms, we are doing what we call social distancing circles. Mr. Steve Connell is working with an architect, Sherry Moser, and they are going over what we call social distancing circles, which will be between 6 and 8 feet between all our desks, tables. All our children will be facing forward and facing in the same direction. We will leave areas around the teacher so they can work safely. We are also going to provide desk shields to all our teachers, as well as some of our service providers, so they can have some one-on-one instruction. And where it is necessary, maybe in our CTE rooms or various kind of labs, our maintenance shop will be fixing our cabinets and our counters with shields and screens and dividers. All our common spaces as well will be 6 feet distancing measures. We will also try to use outdoor spaces for recess. And then we will also be having various floor markings will be in place to ensure social distancing. Next is masks. So we'll be asking that all students and staff be required to wear a mask. We will obviously follow the guidelines, but there will be special accommodations available for students with IEPs, 504 plans, students and staff that may be at higher risk. And there was a list of items that the CDC recommends. And also for those who are dependent on mechanical ventilation as well. And any nebulizer treatments as well. Hygiene routines. So we're going to have a lot of signage about hygiene routines. I do believe we're going to make a video that helps our families understand these routines. We are going to have bathroom breaks. We're going to be scheduling those breaks. We're going to be making sure we adhere to social guidelines, and everything is going to be age appropriate. The students and staff will be required to wash their hands with soap before and after eating. And there will also be procedures, and these procedures will be posted. And we will be using hand sanitizer stations throughout the buildings. We ordered a lot of pedestal stations for the entry. We have making sure that all the existing ones are fixed and filled. We are scheduling for the hallways and schedules, so students will remain in the classes where as much as possible, and the teachers would rotate. This would mean that we would be having a lot of classes, what we call on the cart. All the hallways and stairwells will be marked for social distancing. Daily schedules will be adjusted for like dismissal times and staggering. So in other words, maybe we'll call the walkers out first, and then as the buses arrive, the students would be called out of their rooms when their bus arrives, so we don't have a lot of students all in one area. And then students would be allowed out for recess, but they must adhere to social distancing guidelines. The art, the music, and the library, teachers, again, will be coming to the students where possible. We're going to have enough materials so we can limit the sharing of items. We will provide teachers, and we will provide materials that are appropriate for cleaning all these items. Music instruments will not be shared. Each student will be provide their own music instrument. When books are returned, whether they're textbooks, library books, we will be recommending that they are not used for 2 to 3 days. We will ensure that they're set aside. The gym classes. So the gym classes are going to be limited. The PE teachers and the classroom teachers are going to ensure that there's a safe transition between classes. All forms of cardiovascular and movement-based activities will be replaced with static, low resistance, or individualized activities such as yoga and stretching. Any equipment that's utilized will be sanitized after each class, and where possible, we're going to try to have outside activities. We will also make sure that all the windows and the doors are opened up. This is something I sort of briefly talked about. I know that Miss Mike has been working on a plan for CTE as well. Extracurricular, next slide, please. Extracurricular. So school clubs, plays, intramural practice will be discontinued, or there will be protocols that are developed to continue with less students participating at one time. Visitor access. So visitors will include parents, volunteers, and itinerary staff. No one will be permitted without an appointment or a building permit. All visitors will need to get their temperatures checked. Parents and students, we're going to be asking and not permitting them to congregate while picking up at the end of the school day or after a practice. And we are going to try to designate pickup areas. Building permits will be approved on a one-to-one basis, and there will be criteria that will need to be met. Some of those would obviously include the educational opportunities for PPS students, as well as board-approved like out-of-school time providers. But however, these would only be offered if they were offered to the students in that AA cohort or that B cohort that day. Related services. So occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech, language, and other specialized personnel will be provided cleaning protocols and the necessary things to clean. And they will also be provided these 3-sided desk shields. The protocols to meet students with special needs. Miss Ann Herman has worked on this and has provided a lot of the guidance here. We will have appropriate developmental instructional strategies that help students understand PPE, such as social stories and visual clues. We are going to provide clear masks and shields. We've ordered some what we call smile masks that help limit anxiety and fear of students with significant intellectual disabilities. Individual protocols will be established for each child with a personal ventilation system. Situation-specific protocols for toileting will be established, and protocol safety training on the removal and disposal of gloves, gowns, facial masks, and other protective equipment. Next slide, please. Student transportation. We will be asking that all students wear a mask or a bus on the bus or a shield. And again, we'll have these IEP 504 plan exceptions. We will be assigning seats to all the students, and they will be required to sit one in a seat closest to the window. That's another idea that the Allegheny County Health Department recommended, that we also make sure that since we are saying that they'll be sitting close to the window, that the window be cleaned as well. We will be taking daily attendance of students riding the bus. This is something that the schools will be, we're asking the schools to identify a bus transportation coordinator. The schedules will be adjusted depending on the number of buses a school has. All buses will have signage that encourage students to stay at home if they're sick, to cover their coughs, wear masks. Next slide. PPS will employ the following strategies to monitor students and staff health. This was really Miss Rayanne Green and Miss Lynn Castleberry, along with the crisis team, did a lot of work here. So each day we'll have at intake, students and staff will have their temperatures checked. Parents will be encouraged to screen their children before school. Hand sanitizer stations will be put in place, and we will have all kinds of signage regarding the use of PPE. And when feasible, staff common start times will be used to help screen and then also to help with student intake. Separate or multiple entrance exit doors for students and staff. Also, maybe the walkers come in one way, the buses come in another. Next slide, please. So this is related to student exposure in the school, and it's not just students, it's also a staff member. So we would have a quarantine area established. We would follow protocols for safe return of the student and staff who has been isolated or quarantined. If we have a positive case reported, obviously the building would be immediately cleaned and be taken offline for 2 days or to the next cohort. There would be notifications to the appropriate staff, the students, the families. And if it was a bus, it would be basically the same thing. The bus or the vehicle would be taken offline, and it would be sanitized and disinfected, and we would identify and notify the proper families. And then if we have a positive case that physically comes into one of our buildings, we will have to have reopening procedures, which would not only include the daily temperature checks, but also health screenings for anyone coming into that building. And we have to do this for 14 days after the positive case. And that's 14 days after the time that the person that was positive was in the building. Professional development. So we're going to develop a lot of different to a lot of different role groups. COVID-19 safety awareness training. It'll be provided to a lot of role groups, as well as our bus drivers and our substitutes, teachers, general office staff. Plan operations they've developed their own, and they've been providing PD to their staff ongoing. We will also be implementing social distancing in all our learning spaces and our bus schedule planning. We will be presenting this to our principals, hopefully the first week of August. This would include those facility toolkits, all the different layouts for the different buses, and how that we are asking them to fill those out. And then also re-socializing for sports, for coaches, volunteers, and training. I believe Mr. Aldridge and Miss Arnold have done a lot of this and are continue to work on that as well. So the last one is the communications and engagement. There's been a lot of work on this. Miss Jones and her team, Miss Chersky and Miss Pugh, have done a lot of work here. Their parent academy webinars planned. It's a Facebook Live. The school readiness video. This will be again on the school social distancing toolkit. It'll be like how we're doing. It'll be a video. Frequent household mailings. They're going to have personalized parent mailings, home access accounts, and student ID information. They will also have student schedules, school level who to contact lists and sheets, parent fact sheets on reopening, weekly email blasts, campaign for accurate information, engaging on the website, social media posts, school signage and educational posts. And one thing I know that we're working on that was not listed here was the effort to provide frequently asked questions. And then I'm going to turn this now over to Ms. Furby Jones to work on the last slide. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Just lastly, just to give the public a timeline for approving the health and safety plan. Today, we're giving you an update. This information will be posted on the website. We have about 615 people watching, so please make sure that if you're watching, can you share this with your friends, the timeline. So today is posting the plan in this presentation. On the 29th, we're going to have a special public hearing just around the health and safety plan. That will be publicized, but just long story short, it'll be starting at 5 o'clock. It'll have a 2-minute window, and all testimony needs to be in on the 28th at end of day, which is going to be around 5 o'clock. That will be posted publicly for everyone to know, but you will have an opportunity, the public, to comment on this plan. And then we'll have a special legislative meeting on August 4th at the Education Committee meeting, where we will be presenting more information around the reopening of schools on the 4th as well, or supporting what school will look like on the 4th. So special legislative meeting will be voting on this plan. Thank you so much, Ms. Wilson, back to you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Jones and Ms. Capretta. All right, we're going to move right on into the regular legislative meeting. We're going to start this afternoon with the Pittsburgh Mount Oliver Intermediate Unit. And Mr. Weiss, could we now please have a roll call?
Mr. Carter?
Here.
Ms. Edwards?
Here.
Ms. Falls?
Present.
Mr. Gallagher?
Here.
Mrs. Harmon? Ms. Kennedy?
Present.
Ms. Talaferro? Mr. Dean?
Here.
Ms. Wilson?
Here.
All members present.
All right, thank you, Mr. Weiss. Will the board members please turn to the minutes of June 24th, 2020? Are there any corrections, additions, or deletions? All right, hearing none, then I would like to have a motion and second to approve the minutes of the June 24th, 2020 legislative meeting for the Pittsburgh Mount Oliver Intermediate Unit.
So moved, Veronica.
Ms. Falls, second.
Okay, thank you. All right, all those in favor, please by saying aye.
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 Any noes? All right, the minutes stand approved. The committee report on education that includes agenda item 20.01 is before you. Are there any questions or comments that were not answered at agenda review? All right. Having no questions
I have a
or
question.
comments, is there someone asking something now?
Yes.
Go ahead,
Sala,
Mr.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Mr. Udine.
We just reviewed the health and safety plan. My question, I guess, is what does the administration call the plan beyond health and safety? And when are we going to see that plan? And do we have to approve it?
Okay, at this time, Mr. Udine, we're right in the middle. We're starting the Pittsburgh Mount Oliver Intermediate Units meeting. Not appropriate to ask that question at this time.
Can you assure me that I'll get it on the agenda for the?
We'll find the proper place, but the Pittsburgh Mount Oliver Intermediate section is not the appropriate time.
Thank you.
Certainly, absolutely. Okay, we were on 20.01 and I didn't hear any questions or comments on this section. So could I please have a motion and second for a roll call vote on this?
Wilson, I do have a question. This is Ms. Falls. I'm
ahead.
just wondering, Ms. Baird, are there contingency plans for both physically returning back to the schools that the AU covers, and as well as remote learning? Are both in your plans?
So Ms. Falls, ours is a little bit different because we own no buildings and we don't have students. So it's all itinerant. And we will have a plan for our staff to go into the buildings according to the non-public schools, what they're doing. And if they go remotely, we also will be supporting instruction remotely.
I was just wondering the difference, but you explained it. Thank you so very much. Thank you, Ms. Wilson.
Sure, thank you, Miss Falls. And I'm just going to say that was pretty sneaky, Miss Falls, because the item that we're looking at right now is about the appropriate officers for the Pittsburgh Mount Oliver Intermediate. We're trying to authorize the office to renew a contract with Patricia Montini to continue her work as an academic coach. So you kind of took us off from the agenda item there. But Ms. Baird did answer your question, which is great. But can we get back to 20?
It does fit a little bit, Ms. Wilson. Now, come
Yeah,
on.
just a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. If I don't have a motion in a second, I'm just going to start picking on people.
So moved.
Second, Devin.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Falls and Ms. Telefaro. Mr. Weiss, can we have a roll call vote on 20.01, please?
Mr. Carter,
Yes.
Ms. Edwards,
Yes.
Ms. Falls,
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher,
Yes.
Ms. Harvin, Ms. Harvin,
Yes.
Mrs. Kennedy,
Yes.
Salafaro,
Yes.
Mr. Udine,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson,
Yes.
items approved.
All right, thank you. The committee report on business finance that includes agenda item 25.01 through 25.10 is before you. Are there any questions or comments that were not answered at agenda review? All right, hearing none, may I have a motion and a second to approve these items, please?
So moved,
Terry, so
Veronica.
moved.
Okay, I believe that was Miss Edwards and Miss Kennedy.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Weiss, a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Carter,
Yes.
Ms. Edwards,
Yes.
Ms. Falls,
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher,
Yes.
Mrs. Harmon,
Yes.
Mrs. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Mr. Dean,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson,
Yes.
items approved.
All right, thank you, Mr. Weiss. All right, items 28.01 is the Pittsburgh Mount Oliver Intermediate Unit Financial Travel Report for June 2020. Are there any questions or comments on this report? All right, hearing no further questions or comments, I'd like to have a motion in a second to adjourn.
So moved, Terry.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Kennedy. May I have a second?
Wilson, this is Miss Falls.
Ms. Falls,
Mhm.
thank you.
Okay.
Okay, all those in favor of adjourning this meeting, please say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, I believe the ayes have it. This meeting is now adjourned. All right, I would now like to call the July 22nd, 2020 virtual meeting of the Pittsburgh Public Schools to order. Mr. Weiss, could we please have a roll call?
Mr. Carter,
Here.
Ms. Edwards,
Here.
Ms. Falls,
Present.
Gallagher, Mr. Gallagher,
Here.
Ms. Harmon,
Here.
Mr. Kennedy,
Present.
Mr. Farrell,
Here.
Mr. Dean,
Here.
Ms. Wilson,
Here.
all members present.
All right, thank you. At this time, I'd like to ask Ms. Talaferro to share our core beliefs and commitments.
A. Core beliefs and commitments. Number one, we will educate all children to their highest level of academic achievement. Number two, we will provide a safe and orderly environment for all students and employees. Number three, we will provide efficient and effective support for all students, families, teachers, and administrators. Number four, we will distribute resources in an efficient and equitable manner to address the needs of all students to the maximum extent feasible. And number five, we will improve public confidence and encourage strong parent community engagement in the district.
All right, thank you so much, Ms. Talaferro. All right, at this time, would the board members please turn to the minutes? Today, we all will be approving the minutes for the June 24th, 2020 legislative session. Are there any corrections, additions, or deletions? All right, hearing none, could I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the June 24th meeting?
So moved, Terry.
Second, Devin.
All right, thank you both. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you. The minutes stand approved. All right, executive session was held just prior to this meeting today, July 22nd. And in addition to the executive sessions announced at the legislative meeting June 24th, 2020, the board met virtually in executive sessions on July 15th, July 16th, and as I said before, immediately before this legislative meeting, to discuss various personnel matters that may include, but are not limited to, administrative vacancies and positions open and closed. The board does not vote at executive sessions. All right, we are moving on to the committee report on education, which is before you, which is submitted by myself, Sylvia Wilson, the chairperson in my committee. The report includes agenda items 5.01 through 8.07. And there were some items pulled. Ms. Jones or Dr. Hamlet?
Ms. Wilson, we're pulling 8.06.
Okay, is that all?
That's all for the section.
Okay, thank you. Since there are no further items pulled for further discussion, are there any questions or comments on the committee report on education at this time that were not answered at agenda review?
Ms. Wilson, if I may?
Yes.
So I wanted to acknowledge item 8.05, which is the community-based out-of-school time providers. I know we are considering both new out-of-school time providers as well as ones that have already been engaged with our students. I did share some concerns during agenda review, but I just wanted to reiterate that I question, and I'm hesitant to approve this just yet, and wondering if we should possibly table or come back to this, as I feel as though our partners should be really providing or have provided an organization safety plan to the district. My biggest concern is the fact that many of our organizations hold space in our buildings, and also have volunteers that come from outside of our buildings. And I just want to make sure that the safety plans that those individuals and those organizations have align with what we are also hoping to accomplish, especially if they're going to be housed in our school buildings or even using our buildings after school hours are over. So I don't know who can address that concern for me, but I can't. And I strongly believe in community organizations and the presence they have in our buildings. So I want to make sure that I approve this in good faith, knowing that they are their agenda and their safety plans are, if they have them, are aligned with what we're requiring of our staff and students.
Ms. Capetta?
Okay, so I'll first say, and then David, because that's his, we will make sure that they are added and included in our PD as related to our safety plans. But David can speak what his department's doing on that.
David Maystein, Chief of School Performance. Thank you, Ms. Capretta. That is already part of the plan. As we reviewed building permits and out-of-school time partners having space in our schools, part of the process will be, in order for them to come into our schools at any time during this COVID crisis, they must present to us what their safety plan is, what their social distancing PPE plan is, and any additional training in addition to ours that their employees may have had. It is only after we have reviewed their plan, and that would be a combination of myself, Ms. Capretta, Dr. Netchai, and other members from the out-of-school time office. We review their plans to ensure that they align 100% with our safety plan. It will only be at that time that their permit will be honored. and they'll be allowed to proceed with their programs in our schools. Thank you.
Okay, Miss Telfair, you need more?
Sorry, I was already on off mute.
Go
No,
ahead.
that is fine. I think as long as we can be assured that those organizations may not be able to hold space in our buildings or support your programming without a safety plan before the start of the school year. So if that can be assured to me, I can get on board with that.
Yes.
So,
no
Wilson,
problem.
may I ask a question?
Go ahead.
I'm
Ms.
just a
Falls.
little bit confused. Are you saying that every partner that we have who has any dealings within our building, or even taking, if their program took children outside of the building or whatever, each person would submit a safety plan? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, Ms. Falls, that is what you're hearing.
Okay.
As we're in this pandemic right now, our
Okay.
primary concern is the safety and welfare of all of our students and staff. And
Okay.
anybody coming into our schools must provide us with their safety plan.
Have they been alerted to this? Are they working on it, or has some been submitted?
Once we finish with our process and the board approves what our plans will be, then we will begin to communicate with our partners. We have been in constant communication with our out-of-school time partners through this whole process.
Thank you, Dr. Maystein. Thank you, Ms. Wilson.
Thank you. All right. If there's no further questions or comments, could I have a motion?
Question, Ms. Wilson?
Go ahead.
Ms. Harbin too.
Go ahead. I hear Ms. Harbin.
And I
then
think me and Ms. Harbin might be asking the
Mr.
same
Carter, you're kind of like going in and out.
question. So I'll let her go first.
Okay. All right, Ms. Harbin.
Yeah, thank you. So I have a question. Oh,
I said I'll defer to Ms. Harbin.
okay, thank you. I have a question about I'll start with the 8.05 out of school time. I did ask a question about the City of Police mentoring program, and I didn't get any response. What is that program? Where are they going to be? Are they going to wear a uniform and guns in our schools?
I apologize that information was not shared with you, Ms. Harbin. We will provide that information for you, specifically for that.
Could I have Ms. Harbin repeat her question, please?
Oh, I was asking Mr. Udine on the out-of-school time programming, the new programs list included the City of Pittsburgh Police for a mentoring program. And my question is, what is that program, and are they coming into our schools wearing uniforms and guns?
And your answer, Mr. Stein, was?
I will provide that information as soon as I get it.
Okay.
And I apologize for not having it right now.
Okay, I just want to make a comment on 6.08, 6.09, and 6.10. Those are our contracts for our therapeutic classrooms to bring in outside organizations to provide therapists. And I've had lots of concerns with this model, and I've asked questions and did get what I think is a really good answer, that the emotional support classrooms are going to be looked at comprehensively. There's a team of people that are working on that, and I really do appreciate that. I just want to make sure that when we put this program, when we look at these programs, that we make sure that we have a continuum of service for our students in with emotional support service needs. There's been a lot of talk about our emotional support programs, and right now it seems like there's a big gap. So the students that need a high level of emotional support are their least restrictive environment is a segregated classroom with lots of therapy, which is what we're voting on today. And then there's students that are fully included and may need a little bit of support. But then there's students that are fully included in the general curriculum, but might need a higher level of support. And I feel like that's the continuum that's missing. But when it comes to these contractors, I did ask if we are monitoring the outcomes, and we are not. And I would like to recommend that we do monitor the outcomes, because as this team looks at the services and the services we provide to our students, this is something that we should be paying attention to, is what outcomes do we have from these providers that come in to work with our students. They're to me, very disconnected from what's happening in the school building. So they just work with the student in a way that I think people might have the impression that when they work with these outside organizations, the student's going to get fixed. And I've heard lots of cases where the provider sends in a therapist that doesn't necessarily match with what the student needs, but we keep the student meeting with that provider only because that's what's available in the building. And I think the model needs to be relooked at. So I'm hesitant to vote yes on these services for another year, but I do, believe we need to have something in place. So I will vote yes, but I strongly encourage everybody to look at those services. I'm excited to see Board Tab 7.07, Principal Kafele. I've been following on Twitter. I watch his webinars. He's a very engaging principal leader, and I'm excited that our principals and our leaders get to spend the day with him. It was mentioned in agenda review that we have great donations for our back to school event 8.04. I didn't say anything that day, but I'll say it today. I really appreciate the donations. We're going back to school in some form, and even if students are at home, they need to have supplies and different things. So I appreciate all the donations. I do have a question about 8.07. We are changing the calendar to get rid of not to get rid of them, but to move our professional development days, as I understand it, from a half day on Friday to a half day on Wednesday. So that if we do this AABB hybrid, students aren't impacted by that. But I did ask the question, and I didn't get the answer. Do we have the same amount of days for the AA students on the calendar that we do for the BB students?
Ms. Harbin, this is Erica Jones. The answer is yes. We did have a staff person look at that, and they counted the number of holidays, days off, and it seems to be the same. And that Friday was impacting the BB students, and so that's why we moved it.
Great, that's perfect. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Ms. Harbin. Mr. Carter?
Ms. Harbin asked my question. Thank you.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you. Are there any other questions? All right, then. All right, if we're at this point, then I would now ask for a motion and a second to vote on the committee report on education and student performance.
This is Terry,
Point of order. Point of order.
Yes.
I need to inquire of the president, at what point do you intend to introduce my question?
I was going to wait until after we got through the agenda items prior to when we have the announcements. I thought that would be the appropriate time. Is that fine with you?
Well, I'll accept your wisdom on it. I feel a little bit uncomfortable with it because we're going ahead discussing committees like education and other committees, and it's not clear to me when we will get an opportunity to discuss our back to school plan for items other than health and safety.
Okay, and at this time,
To you.
the items that we're voting on tonight were the items that were at agenda review last week. That's why I felt that it was best. You can ask your question, but I felt it was appropriate to go through the agenda as was presented last week before you ask your question.
I'll abide by your guidance. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, could I have a motion and a second, please, so that we can vote on this section?
Mrs.
So-
Curry, I already moved.
Okay, Ms.
Moved. Oh, second.
And Ms. Falls. All right, thank you. Mr. Weiss, can we have a vote on this committee report on education?
Mr. Carter,
Yes.
Ms. Edwards,
Yes.
Ms. Falls,
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher,
Yes.
Ms. Harmon,
Point of order, Mr. Weiss, can I vote no on the item on 8.05?
you mean, can you vote yes on the report, no on that, you mean?
No, I want to vote yes on 8.05, but I want to vote no for the police program.
So you want to vote yes on the report and no on 8.05 as it relates to the police?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, that's how your vote will be registered then.
Thank you.
Minutes will so reflect that. Mrs. Kennedy?
Yes, on the report as a whole, I need to abstain on 8.05 because my employer is on the list of out-of-school time providers. A memo is or will be sent to you by Laura Getty on my behalf. Thank you.
I received that electronically, thank you.
Welcome.
Scalafaro? Mr. Udine?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Reports approved with the no vote on 8.05 relating to the police. Thank you.
Mr. Weiss, can you mark my vote identical to Ms. Hartman's vote on that? I didn't know I could do that.
It's fine. So noted.
All right, thank you, Mr. Weiss. We're now going to move to the committee report on business and finance that is before you, submitted by Mr. Kevin Carter, chairperson in his committee. The report includes items 10.01 through 12.02. Do we have any items to be pulled from this section?
Yes, items 10.21 and 10.22 are being pulled. And for item 10.26, the account line should read 6,000 1GS 1100 610. Once again, that's 6,000 1GS 1100 610. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Joseph. There were no, does anyone have any questions or comments or anything in this section that needs to be brought up before we vote?
Can you repeat the two pulled items in this section?
Sure, item 10.21 and 10.22 are being pulled.
Thank you.
Ms. Wilson, I have a question.
Go ahead.
On item 10.26, what are in the kits?
Pam Capretta, Chief Operations Officer. So they are for grades pre-K through 5, and they vary depending on the grade level. There will be some basic, pencils, a journal, their own scissors, any regular supplies that they would use, as well as math appropriate grade level classroom items as well. Construction paper, just different things that the students would use on a regular basis. And we could also provide the spreadsheet if the board's so pleased on exactly what's in each part of those kits. The kits will come already bagged and boxed by grade level.
Mr. Gallagher, anything more?
Sorry about that. What type of discount did we receive from Lakeland for this purchase? Thank you.
We will get the information to you, as well as we were also working with the educational partnership as well on supplies for our students as well.
Ms. Wilson, is it possible to get this pulled so we get the information from Lakeland on this? Thank you.
Ms. Capretta?
So I can say that, this is Ronald Joseph. I can say that Lakeshore is a CoStar's approved vendor, which means they go through the state contracting process. Their discounts are based on the specific items that they bid for the contract. So each supply will have a discounted amount off of the catalog price. Those vary by the specific items. In addition, we do work with them very routinely, and they are quite open to reducing the price beyond that. So I would caution against pulling this item, because pulling this item would mean that we're delayed in getting those items into the hands of the students who would be opting into in-school instruction.
They would be not, we would not have them in time.
Well, I just want to make sure that we are getting the best bang for our buck, as I like to say, because they are known to be kind of pricey.
So we did get another quote as well. We actually asked for 3 quotes because this is federally funded. School specialist came in with a quote that was probably $60,000 more expensive. And then we also asked another vendor, and they declined to quote, I do believe.
And Pam, this is being paid for with grant dollars, right?
This is grant dollars, yes. And so these are for, again, in-house. So one of the recommendations is not to share supplies, and this is what these are for our students, not to share supplies.
So they're going home with the kid, right?
No, these are not going home with the kids. These are to be shared within the building.
And the total amount is paid by grant money? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it is.
Fantastic, thank you.
Okay, and Ms. Capretta, in addition to that, you mentioned education partners, and the education partnership provides things for free to us, correct?
They do, but they don't provide the detail that's in all these packets.
Yes, some.
Right, and they don't provide to all of our schools, don't participate. However, they did indicate that they would work with us this year with all of our schools. They also are going to be donating 2 masks to every student and a face shield as well to all our teachers. And Dr. Lamar and Miss Carol Bro Martin and myself have been working, trying, to work out this supply for the start of school.
All right, thank you so much. Are there any other questions or comments?
Yeah, Ms. Wilson, I have it on the same item. Is where these? I had my hand up. Whatever. I'll wait.
Okay, Miss Edwards and then Miss Kennedy.
On 1023 Schoology, I see that it's a renewed item, but how is it compatible with Microsoft Team, or how do they work together? Can someone explain that to me?
Ted Dwyer, Chief Accountability Officer. Schoology and Microsoft Teams integrates into Schoology, and that is actually the LMS that we're planning on using with using Teams inside of Schoology for communications. So for conferences inside of the system. So it's an integration that actually exists, and we have turned it on for Schoology.
So is it a student program or professional development?
Schoology is our learning management system that the teachers will use to deliver curriculum and deliver content to the students. It's used as a platform to provide the teachers the ability to in their classes. Teams actually integrates into it to allow us to use the communication part of Teams, which is one of the reasons why we went with Teams over the summer or last year, because we needed that ability to communicate. So does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, and Miss Kennedy, before you speak, I just want to remind everybody, I cannot see raised hands either by screens because I don't see everybody on my screen. Even if I go to gallery view, I don't see everyone. So I'm not seeing raised hands, and I also am not seeing that little hand raising thing. So we'll just please be patient as we call on individuals, all right, to speak. Okay, Mrs. Kennedy.
Okay, thanks. I'd like to go back to 1026. I have a couple questions. One is, I thought these were going to be per the agenda item, in-home learning kits, but did I just hear in response to Mr. Gallagher's questions that these were for in school?
Yes, Pam Capretta, Chief Operations Officer. These are for in school because the idea is that this is being funded by the safety grant, and the safety grant is, is related to the health and safety of our students that will be inside the building.
I can't leave in the middle of this legislative meeting. I'm leading the meeting, so I can't leave.
So all right. So the
Ms. Wilson, your mic is up.
So the agenda item saying they're in-home learning kits really should say in classroom or something like that. That was misleading.
Yes, you know what? That's a mistake. That's a mistake on my part for not finding the time to review this. So we will note that and make that adjustment accordingly.
Right. Thank you. In the minutes. Now the other thing is I'm looking at the quote from Lakeshore Learning, and I've looked at their website, and I'm guessing that this was a custom order because they don't have. If you search for any of these kit item numbers, you find nothing on their website, the description starts with each of them Pittsburgh, and then the CPS, I guess, back to school, and then the grade level, and then kit. So I'm guessing when we put it out for quotes, we said what we wanted in each grade level kit.
Yes, and then we went back because we went back and forth on this. We spoke to the Office of School Performance to remove items that they believe they didn't need because the quote was a lot higher to start with that we didn't necessarily need, and then they added on some of the math items at each grade level. So yes, and they were custom made as well.
So, all right, that makes sense and why we can't find it. So I will look forward to the spreadsheet that in response to Mr. Gallagher's request. Thank you.
Okay, Miss Harbin.
Thank you. I guess I'll start with 10.26 since we're already talking about that. Will the students in the regional classrooms be given the kits also in pre-K through 5th?
Yeah, I mean, yes, we would not.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yes, and I don't know if Miss Herman is going to have additional supplies that she will be purchasing as well, but we would not, they'll go to the students that are in-house.
Okay, and are we looking at getting student supplies for home too? So I know we did give supplies out last year.
So we only did that to pre-K last year, and I'm not sure what the funding would come from that, but Miss Furby Jones, I don't know if she has any comments on that one as well.
That would be a good community donation space because I do think, if we're doing learning at home, there's going to need to be supplies at home also. I do have a question. Oh, I just want to say on, no questions, but 10.23 Schoology, I was on the committee, the all-in committee that made a recommendation for Schoology. And I just wanted everybody to understand that it was very clear that Teams was not a preferred learning management system. And the decision for a learning management system was debated and debated and debated very thoroughly, I believe, in that committee that included a broad group of people. And I just want everyone to understand that we landed on Schoology mostly because it's integrated with the student information systems that we already have. So our eSchools Plus system, I guess transportation, it was a seamless way to get a new learning management system that we wouldn't have to figure out how to get our existing systems connected. So we could support Schoology very easily with what we already had. And I know that there are people, it's the Google versus Microsoft debate, and a lot of people feel very, very passionate about Google products. And, you know, like I feel passionate about my Apple computers, but at the end of the day, there was no way we could have gone with Google Classroom in my mind and in our committee's mind, because Google Classroom would have required teachers to enroll students in their classrooms manually. And our students are very transient. I mean, we have students that go from school to school or, you know, place to place. And if we missed a student because they didn't get added in at the school level, like it has to happen at the district level. So Schoology is fully supported by the district, and that was the big reason that our committee made that recommendation. So thank you for approving that recommendation and allowing us to vote on that today. The other thing that I wanted to say is 10.15, the contract to B3 Solutions. This, I think, is really, really important. Our students that are arrested in a juvenile justice system and in our magistrate citation system, and I don't believe we had good software that allowed us to be able to keep track of the two and really look at our citations, who is getting citations, where they're getting the citations and for what reasons. But I did ask a question about the information that goes from this system to the magistrate, and I asked whether or not the information comes back to us. So after the magistrate makes a determination on the citation, does that information come back to us? And I didn't get an answer on that.
What item are we talking about?
10.15.
Thank you.
Ms. Harbin, I will have to get that information.
Because I do think I'm going to vote yes on this, but I do think it's important to understand if we send students to the magistrate and then the magistrates are, not going through with what the citations are for, maybe that's just a point of information to look at to see if we're writing too many citations, or to maybe look at the difference between magistrates and see if we have a magistrate issue in the city. So if that is possible to get that information back, I think that would be good information to have. Thank you.
All right, are there any other questions or concerns or comments? All right, thank you. Then hearing none, could I please have a motion in a second on this Business and Finance Committee report?
So moved. Terry, so moved.
Second.
Okay, was that Ms. Edwards and Mr. Carter?
That was Miss Kennedy, and then myself, Mr. Carter.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Weiss, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Carter,
Yes.
Ms. Edwards,
Yes.
Ms. Falls,
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher, Mr. Gallagher,
Yes.
Ms. Harmon, Mrs. Kennedy,
Yes.
Ms. Talafaro,
Yes.
Mr. Mr. Dean? Mr. Dean? Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Dean, are you there? And the vote is 8-0 on this one. Thank you.
Dean is saying yes, I vote yes. I see his face.
Oh, did he? Okay, I'm sorry, I missed it. Thank you, 9-0.
All right, thank you, Mr. Weiss. We're now going to move on to the Human Resources Report, item number 13.01. That includes addendums A and B that have been submitted by Mr. Bill Gallagher, the chairperson, and his committee. Are there any questions or comments on this report?
Ms. Wilson, Ms. Falls.
Yes, Falls, go ahead.
I would really like to acknowledge the retirement of Mr. Walt Malinsky, the health and phys ed teacher from Carrick High School, Pittsburgh Carrick High School. I worked with him for many years, and I have to say, besides being an extraordinary teacher, coach, friend, and etc., what a wonderful man he is. And we had the opportunity last year, Dr. Hamlet and myself. I'm not sure if anybody else was there. If you were, I apologize, but I'm getting old and my memory's fading. But I do believe it was Dr. Hamlet and I were there when the Gold Gym, which is a bigger gym, was named in his honor, and the most beautiful plaque was placed there. And his entire family came for that celebration, and the cheerleaders were there, and it was a very wonderful event to a man who was very well deserving. And I just want to comment and say that we've had all the wonderful things that he's given to this district, but it will be missed because he really was a role model for many of our students. And again, I just also want to say, his father was my professor in one of my college credits, and he was there as well. And it was wonderful to see him after X amount of years since I have been there. But he will be sadly missed, but he has earned his retirement. So thank you, Mr. Walt Malinsky, for all you have done for this district. Thank you, Ms. Wilson.
Thank you, Ms. Falls. Any other questions or comments?
Ms. Wilson, just to reiterate, Ms. Falls, comments on Coach Malinsky, wonderful man. Also, his dad was an outstanding coach. You can see where Walt got it from. And, guys like that is, gentlemen like Mr. Malinsky is what, we need in this district, guys that care. Was really cool was I've been friends with Walt for years, but in the summertime, he coached cross country also at Carrick, and he would have his kids running through down Brookline Boulevard in the morning. He put the work in, and not only was he a dedicated teacher, but man, he has a heart of gold. And I ran into him a couple months ago at Home Depot, and he's looking forward to retirement, and he earned it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gallagher. Ms. Harbin?
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I'm excited to see that there's a couple more principal positions, or no, one more principal position this month, which is an interim principal at Linden. Ms. Wasserman was a teacher at Linden, and I believe that'll be a really, it'll be a really good position for her there. And I did want to also say that I'm excited that the marching bands are going to get to do some form of band camp, social distance style. And I was disappointed that Westinghouse does not have a band camp this year. And then I just looked again, and Carrick also is not on there. So if we can look into those two schools, I believe Carrick had a band. I know Westinghouse was struggling, but maybe this is a way that we can get out at least a few students, even if they don't have a full band. But if we could get a teacher for band camp, this might be a good way to recruit students. So I'd like to see them on there too. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harbin. All right, any other questions or comments by any other board members? All right, then I'm not hearing any. May I have a motion?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
Mr. Udine, go ahead.
Thank you. In case there are parents or stakeholders who are listening in to hear the status of the principal of UPrep appointed, we're still in the process of disconnecting him from his previous place of employment, but we expect that we will have all of that completed in due time for him to arrive on the job, to meet the stakeholders and parents, and to get ready for the opening of school. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Last request. All right, then hearing no further, then could I have a motion in a second to approve the human resources report, please?
So moved.
Second.
All right, thank you. Did you get that? Is that Ms. Falls and Mr. Carter?
Sure
Correct.
was the dynamic duo.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, Mr. Weiss, may we have a roll call vote on the human resources report that includes addendums A and B? Mr. Weiss?
He's probably
I'm
muted.
sorry, I'm trying to get unmuted.
Okay.
Mr. Carter,
Yes.
Ms. Edwards,
Yes.
Ms. Falls,
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher,
Yes.
Ms. Harbin,
Yes.
Mrs. Kennedy,
yes,
Ms. Talafaro,
Yes.
Mr. Udine,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson.
Yes.
Report's approved.
I thank you, Mr. Weiss. All right, we're moving to item 15.01, the budget transfer. Any questions or comments on the budget transfer? Can I have a motion in a second to approve this item, please?
I didn't hear you, Ms. Wilson. I think Ira, you need to be.
I'm not hearing anybody. It's all
Somebody needs to mute.
everything is coming kind of garbly, so I don't know if
It's clear
anybody has
now.
anything to ask.
It's clear now.
Okay, anybody have anything to ask? All right.
I didn't hear what you said, Ms. Wilson, at all.
I was asking for a motion in a second for 15.01 on the budget transfer because I didn't hear any questions or comments on the budget transfer. So Ms. Harbin, did you have a question?
Oh.
So moved.
No, ma'am.
Second.
I'm sorry, I heard Ms. Talafaro, no one else. Who else?
Ms. Falls.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Weiss, can we have a roll call on item 15.01, please?
Ms. Carter,
Yes.
Ms. Edwards, Ms. Edwards, Ms. Falls,
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher,
Yes.
Ms. Harbin,
Yes.
Mrs. Kennedy,
yes,
Talafaro, Mr. Udine,
Yes.
Mr. Udine,
Yes.
thank you. Ms. Wilson,
Yes.
Ms. Edwards, are you on?
Here, did you hear me?
Yeah, thank you. I hear you now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Transfers are approved.
I thank you. Item 16.01 and 1602, the financial statements and controllers reports for the month ending June 30th, 2020 are before you this afternoon. Do you have any questions or comments on these two items? All right, hearing none, we'll move to item 16.03, the EBE reports for July 2020, which is also before you this afternoon. Are there any questions or comments on this report? All right, thank you. We're going to move on now to new business. We have two items at this point. The first item, yes.
Just wondering if you wanted to, Mr. Dean. Oh, sorry.
Is Erica helping me?
Yes, she is.
Thank you. I have three items that I need to raise up at some point, and I need your advice, Madam President. One is a rather internal item that has to do with board administration relations and communications. I don't intend to bring that up at this meeting, but I do need your guidance as to when is the appropriate time to bring it up. It had been suggested that we wait until the next retreat, but I don't even know if there's another retreat scheduled, and if so, when that schedule is. So I need your advice on that.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Miss Jones for interceding right now because we were getting ready to go to new business. There will be a retreat schedule. We just haven't agreed to a date yet. That's all. We haven't looked at a date because with everything else that had been happening with school opening, we just didn't. But we do have to have one. Board communication is the appropriate time to discuss that at a board retreat.
Well, I just want to get it on the table and make sure that it doesn't get left behind.
Won't be left behind. You're not the only person that asks about it. We did talk about it at the last retreat, but it doesn't mean that we can't continue to discuss it.
Thank you. Second, I have a resolution that I would like to have read into the minutes with the president's permission.
At this time, to be quite honest, it wouldn't be. I was going to new business, and we have two.
This is new business.
Okay,
this is new business.
Well, we have some on the agenda already. We really need to go with what's on the agenda first before you do that. The appropriate time isn't now, but we may have. We'll listen to your resolution, but let's go over what's on the agenda first. And what was your third question or point?
The third question has to do with the back to school, when we will discuss the back to school plan for those items outside of health and safety.
Okay, thank you. Still, we will get to that. I'll answer that question right now because I did say, well, no, because you may have some more questions on that. So let's get through the new business first and then come back to that one. Please.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, 17.01 is a new business item called the Emergency SEC Resolution. All right, do we have any discussion on this item, please? In particular, who is presenting it?
Yeah, I have a question because this is when I refreshed my board docs, it was the first time I saw this resolution. And if it was something in our email, I apologize. I don't remember seeing it. So, but
I would, yeah, thank you, Ms. Ken. I would like for someone to present what this is.
I'll address it because this was placed on through the administration of my request. The school code contains a provision that requires minimum days and hours of instruction. Uh, Remote instruction does not count towards those requirements unless there is a declaration of emergency by the Department of Education and a concurrence by the local school district, or when it is otherwise authorized, such as flexible instruction days, which some districts used last year, and then they use remote instruction for those days, which are typically snow days or something like that. In light of the current situation, the department has issued a declaration of emergency, and school districts are being recommended to adopt this resolution, which authorizes alternate forms of instruction, such as remote instruction. And then that permits those hours to count towards the 180 days, 900 hours, and 990 hours. If you don't do this and you have remote instruction, it doesn't count towards that time. So that's what this resolution puts in place. It is being adopted virtually statewide for the very reason I'm describing. So that's the background of this resolution. It is confined to the period of emergency. So if and when this emergency ever is removed, and we certainly hope it's sooner rather than later, then this go away. But it's very important that the board do this to facilitate whatever remote instruction will be done in this school so that it counts towards instructional time.
Mr. Weiss, this is Ms. Falls. Can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. I find it kind of ironic that in a pandemic period, that this would even have to be done. I mean, it's kind of weird to me that, I mean, it should be a given. We're all in the same boat per se. Maybe we're getting out a little bit different, but why did that have to go to that extreme?
Ira, unmute.
The local district, the Department of Education has enabled local districts to take this action if the local district chooses to. And this is the resolution that implements that recommendation. So if you adopt this resolution, it then permits the remote instruction of whatever degree it is to count towards instructional time. It also requires that grading, attendance, and all the things attendant to education be done. But it's very important in this environment that this district have the ability to count that time. So that's why it's before you. It's a good question.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. I just needed to understand that because I'm someone who kind of sees the bigger picture, and I'm thinking, why do we even have to do that? But I appreciate and what a wonderful answer. Thank you so very much, Mr. Weiss. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does it apply to previous last spring?
That was your question was clear. Whatever you said, Mr. Dean, is not clear.
Ira, you have to, Mr. Weiss, you need to begin.
I was asking Mr. Weiss whether or not that same principle applied to the remote learning hours that occurred during the spring.
The legislature in Act 13 addressed that by waiving the requirements of that minimum time. That's how they handled it. But they have not waived it for this school year, and only the legislature can waive that.
Thank you.
All right, are there any other questions or comments on this item? All right, thank you. Then since I'm not hearing any more, could I have a motion and a second to vote on this new business item 17.01?
So moved.
Mr. Perry, so moved.
Okay, we have Mr. Carter and Ms. Kennedy. All right, Mr. Weiss, can we have a roll call vote?
Mr. Carter,
Yes.
Ms. Edwards,
Yes.
Ms. Falls,
An absolute yes.
Mr. Gallagher,
Yes.
Mrs. Harbin,
Yes.
Mrs. Kennedy,
Yes.
Ms. Talaferro. Ms. Talaferro, did you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Udine,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson.
Yes.
Resolution's approved, then it'll be, the department will be apprised of the board action. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have item 17.02, a new business item. Mr. Carter, I'm going to ask you if you still want us to present this.
Yes. So I still want to present it, but I will say that based on the advice of legal counsel to avoid any perceived violations of the Sunshine Act, what I'm going to ask the board to do is to I make a motion to, one, introduce this resolution and to place it on the special legislative agenda for a final vote pending public comment.
Second the motion.
All right. Mr. Weiss, is that appropriate? Mr. Carter made that motion. Mr. Udine seconded.
Yes, yes, I think that's the appropriate thing to do, and the board can consider it on August 4th for all the health and safety plan.
All right, thank you. All right, so for the public's knowledge, so you're.
But I would like to read it in for discussion tonight.
Well,
Is that possible?
Go ahead and do that now, because we're on 17.02. You just said you want to present this, but you want to wait for public comment and we'll vote on it, you said, at the special legislative meeting. So you can go ahead and introduce the resolution.
Alrighty. The resolution reads: a resolution of the Board of Public Education of the School District of Pittsburgh directing the postponing of in-class instruction for the first 9-week quarter of the 2020-21 school year, and directing that all students begin the school year enrolled in remote learning. Whereas the Board of Directors of Pittsburgh Public Schools recognizes and understands the very real and serious threat COVID-19 poses to the public health of our communities, and whereas the Board of Directors and Superintendent of the Pittsburgh Public Schools have the ultimate authority and responsibility for ensuring the health and safety of all staff, students, and partners operate in our facilities, and whereas the Board of Directors of the Pittsburgh Public Schools acknowledges that while in-school instruction is a much more effective option than remote learning for some of our students, we cannot in good faith open schools until our state and federal government gets the virus under control. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Directors instructs the Superintendent of Pittsburgh Public Schools to do the following. 1, modify current district plans for blended and in-class instruction and transition all students into remote learning for the first 9-week reporting quarter. Prepare plans for all students to begin the school year remote learning and equipped to succeed with the new technology chosen. Provide a contingency plan for special ed students to get access to the necessary support services and resources to be successful. Number 4 is to ensure that every student has one-to-one access to technology devices at the start of the school year to properly implement remote learning instruction. And number 5 is to develop a contingency plan for parents of students who are essential workers and those not able to support their child's remote learning journey. And that is how the resolution reads. And the goal of this resolution is to really, I think, help structure kind of our focus for the fall, given the fact that we keep having more and more positive cases of COVID every day, and the uncertainty of time and waiting could put families even more at risk of not being prepared for what is to come at the start of the school year. And I think that this resolution provides both the board and the administration the necessary time to really weed out some of the missing details of what in-person, in-class instruction will look like. And I want to turn it over to Dr. Hamlet, who who I engaged early on in writing this resolution and was supportive for some feedback on what that could possibly look like postponing, in-class instruction for the first 9 weeks.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. That's something administratively we discussed, especially as we track the COVID cases over time. We do that on a regular basis every day to see where the spikes are or the ebbs and flows of the COVID transmission. And you hit the nail on the head. Right now, we're at a space where we can see continued spikes of COVID, not just in Allegheny County with a concentration in Pittsburgh, but this is across the United States. I think I read today that last couple of days, we hit 1 million COVID cases in one day. So again, this is trending upward. We knew what we heard before previously that we'll have spikes in the fall. We haven't even gotten to the fall yet, and we begin to see those spikes. I know the county has put some actually a state government has put some plans in place to try to mitigate the spread of COVID, going back from 250 individuals meeting in person to 25 individuals meeting in person, and also changing some specifics when it comes to restaurants and bars and that nature. My question to the health department specifically was, do these mitigation methods speak to education as well? And the answer was kind of somewhat no, but understanding where we are as Pittsburgh Public Schools, we want to make sure that we make the best decision when it comes to the health, safety, and welfare of our students, faculty and staff, and community at large. We're making this decision. So we're in a space that we can make that happen at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from other board members?
Yeah, this is Terry. I do. I would like to say I 100% support this. And as I sent an email earlier today to Kevin and to Sylvia, saying that I had been considering making the same motion from the floor. So, but I thank Kevin for getting it down in writing, so it was more thought out. But a delay of 9 weeks gives us a lot more time to work out the details. As we always say, the devil is in the details. And there are a lot of questions out there that parents are having, teachers and other staff members are having. So I think having us all start remotely will give more time to provide those answers and to give the assurances needed to people that if they send their child to school or if their staff member they come to the building, that we can keep them safe. The other thing is I have been hearing more and more from staff members, not just parents and guardians, but staff members who have anxiety and other issues over the concern about not wanting to be in the building, but don't want to put their jobs at risk. I mean, it's not just staff members who might have a condition that might be at higher risk, but they might be parents or guardians of other people, or they could be sandwich generation taking care of their parents. They could be any number of reasons, and they're just worried. I've been working, talking to various people. While I've been in this meeting, I'm getting more messages from parents that they are afraid about sending their children back to the building. But they understand that, they don't speak for everybody, but they just are trying to plan for their children. And we already saw earlier today, earlier in this meeting at the presentation to start, we already have 4,026 students that are enrolled for a full-time online. That's, we have less than 24,000 students in the district. So we're already talking about more than 1/6 of our students. And with the numbers spiking, one of the questions parents have is, can I change my decision during the term? If I start out one way, can I, if I start out saying in school, but as cases, with the hybrid model, but if the cases continue to rise, can I switch it? And the response that was placed on social media was no. Can only happen at semester break. And I understand why the district might want to plan that, but I think we need to revisit it because we have to really look at safety first. And I think that, again, going back to the delay of the 9 weeks, it gives us even more time to address that. It gives the parents and guardians more time to make the decision. Do they want to add their students to this 4,026 students already enrolled? Or do they want to keep their students in the hybrid model when we do get to reopening? And I think time will tell. So I 100% support this, and I look forward to listening to the public comment. Thank you.
I thank you, Ms. Kennedy. Ms. Harbin, just a minute. Ms. Harbin is next.
If Mr. Dean has a question, I'm
No,
fine.
I'll defer to you. I was just trying to get in.
Okay, thank you. So I do support this. I've been giving this a lot of thought and having lots of conversations with lots and lots of people, including Dr. Hamlet and his staff. And, you know, when we started this all-in process, the county was just turning green, which I think everybody thought green meant go. And it's a lot different from when we started the all-in process. So the decision to start off with remote learning, I think, is the only decision we can make right now to keep everybody safe. I would like to say, though, that I do think that the time that we have in the next couple weeks should be used wisely, and it should be used for engagement with our families and with our teachers to really find out what everybody's needs are, and to make sure that I think we need to contact every family. I think we need to put, all hands on deck, principals, FACE coordinators. If we need to potentially look at bringing some people in the summer that can just be used to make family contacts, because there's going to be a lot of families, no matter which way we do this, there are going to be families that this is going to be a real hardship. And I think we need to identify those families and work the best way that we know how. I mean, we do have a lot of resources. We do have a lot of people in the community willing to help, and I just think we need to coordinate that work. The other thing that I just want to say is that it is really clear to me that, the COVID crisis did highlight the inequities that already existed in education. And this is not just our district, this is, across the country. And if we are going to build something new, which remote learning is something new, cyber charters doing it, but cyber charters, it's not the same model, because cyber charters, the parents that choose cyber charters know what they're getting into, and they know that they need to be a guide for their child through that process. But this remote learning that we're doing for students with disabilities, significant numbers of students with disabilities, English language learners, students in foster care, students that are homeless, we have students and families that have a lot of different circumstances, and I do believe that the inequities deepen. And if we're building something new, I say that this is the time to build it with real equity in mind. I say that this is the time to kind of disrupt some of the systems where, certain families have been able to access education easily, and barriers have been existing for other families. There are families that hoard opportunities in our district, and we should make sure that everything that we decide from this point forward, our policies, our practices for how we do this, unbelievable thing that we are doing to change learning from in school to learning at home or hybrid, that everything we do, every decision we make should be with our students and families in mind that do not have equitable access to the education system that we currently have. So, I think these are really important conversations. The other thing that I wanted to say is that our transportation, I don't know how we are going to figure out transportation. And I think this delay to move to remote learning gives us time to figure that out. not only do we transport students to 54 different schools in Pittsburgh Public Schools, but we transport every private school student and every charter school student that wants to be transported, that their family doesn't take them to school. And every private school and every charter school that we transport students to may have a completely different schedule than what we choose to do. So it is going to be it's a huge lift. And I think this 9-week remote only learning would give us time to figure that out. I'd also like to know from our solicitor if we are not transporting students, if we are still required to transport students in charter schools and private schools.
That is a complicated legal issue that we're still reviewing. This district has had litigation many years ago with the Diocese of Pittsburgh over student transportation schedules and how they sync with the district schedule. So I'm going to defer a response until we get a more definitive legal conclusion on that, and we'll advise the administration and the board in an appropriate setting as to what our findings are. But it is a complicated issue. There are 2 statutes involved, one covering charter schools, one covering non-public schools, and they're slightly different. So that is the most I can tell you right now.
Thank you. And then just specific to the resolution, the contingency plan for special education students, I do believe, it's the law that we have to provide education to students with disabilities and our English language learners and our homeless students. So those plans will need to be made. My plea is that we do a better job this time than we did with our remote learning in March. I know it was thrown on us. We didn't expect it. We weren't ready, but now we should be ready. And we need to make sure that we work with every family to make sure that students with disabilities get the supports and services that they need. I'm not sure what contingent, not a contingency plan, but we need to make sure that we are putting everything in place. And I'm convinced that we can do it. The essential workers, our teachers are essential workers too. So I just want to make sure that we have plans for all of our families and all of our teachers, and we keep everybody safe. And this thing just has to work for all of us. And the one other thing. So the community partners that were involved with the all-in committees, I've heard from someone that it would be, I think, a really smart idea to continue with the all-in teams, and maybe not all of them need to meet again, but I think it'll be really important for us to continue as a committee, as committees, to figure out some of this work. And I like that idea, so thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harbin. All right, Mr. Udine.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to point out that this pandemic cannot be an opportunity for us to relax on our standards for reaching quality education, especially for the Black and brown students, special needs students who were already behind when schools closed in the spring. And my guess is, unless we have an autopsy of the last quarter that proves me wrong, my guess is that they fell further behind during that last quarter of the spring. So the fact that the pandemic is forcing us to learn from home it is a even more important requirement that we have a robust learning methodology and system and standards so that our children do not keep going further and further behind. I'll leave it to the board to answer my question later as to whether or not an assessment has been done of our experience. What did we learn? What did we do well? What did we do poorly in the last quarter of last year? And what do those lessons inform us about going forward with remote learning next year? I'd be interested in knowing what that autopsy looks like. But our kids still need us to provide a high quality education regardless of the pandemic, and we have to find a way to do it. And is this the time for me to introduce my resolution?
No, we have a motion on the floor.
Okay, I'll wait. Those are the things that I wanted to say about the motion. I support the motion to put this resolution on the floor to delay, but I want to just bring to our attention the need to find a way to catch up students who are behind, and I don't think that we've done a bang up job with families either, reaching out and touching base with families, especially the marginalized families, the so-called hard to reach families. They are not the ones who answer your emails and your Facebook calls, but their children are still in our public schools, and we have to find a way to reach out to those families and get them involved. They don't have a long history with technology, and we have to find a way to pull them in, to bring them in. That's the hardest part of our job, but the most important part. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Are there any other board members who want to comment on this? Okay, go ahead.
Gallagher.
Yep.
First of all, Mr. Carter, I think what you did today was the true definition of moral courage. It's the ability to act rightly in the face of popular opposition. And I think now this is the time to make a decision. Okay, I'm going to give Pam a good football analogy. You always see the coaches on the sideline with their playlists. Okay, they always have their playlist. They're looking at their playlist. That's not the most important thing. On the back of the playlist is you have the answer sheet. And that's what we need now is the answer sheet. You know, if we go back to school, what happens if somebody tests positive? Do we send the whole class home? We have all these things. You know, being in a school building for 27 years, I'm telling you, you're not going to social distance. You're not. Okay. And we have to just eliminate those problems. And as Mr. Udine and Ms. Harbin so eloquently said it, is we have to get this education component correct. If we have 1 month to get this right, this online learning, with the dedicated teachers we have, with the dedicated administrators we have, I think we can do a tremendous job. What we have to do is also think outside the box, okay? Because if you're not in a physical building, you're not going to go period 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We can do some really cool stuff, I believe, so we can reach all students, so we can reach parents. You know, I bet you if you ask some teachers, hey, do you want to work 10 to 6? you might have 10 to 6. There's a lot of things we can do. We have a lot of talented people in the building. As Mr. Udine pointed out and Pam pointed out, we have to reach these families. Well, we have people in the building that are going to be paid. There's not going to be kids there. Okay, you're on the phone, you're on a computer, you're touching base with the parents. If whatever we have to do it. And I also think, you know, the big concern is making sure that we educate our students with an IEP correctly. We have a ton of talented special ed teachers in the district that run resource rooms. We're going to be looking at what's the least restrictive environment. What can we do? I think we can do some really, really cool stuff. And I think as, we spent this, 4 months that I've been here, reimagining Pittsburgh Public Schools, I think we can really, really do some great, great things. Look now, I know my one daughter, she's been working at home through this whole thing. She works for PNC. I don't know they'll ever bring them back into a building, so it's a big, big, big opportunity for us to be the shining example in urban districts. Also, I really, really believe that we can do this, and we have to do it. We have to do it. We swore an oath. We got to make sure all our kids get educated, and like you said, whatever it takes. And with that, I'll be quiet. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Gallagher. Any of the other board members?
Just very quickly, Ms. Wilson, this is Ms. Falls. I obviously agree with everything that all my colleagues have said, but I don't want to disregard the work that the people have done who have been here prior to this. People have put blood, sweat, and tears into working before this pandemic happened. And just because it may not be perfect, or it may not be the way people would want our education system to be, it doesn't mean that the work hasn't been laid out, and it doesn't mean that people haven't worked very hard to try to do as things came up appropriately deal with. And we're very blessed to have some new, fresh ideas. We're very blessed to have some people who have brought energy to our board and to the administration as well. But I don't want it to sound like that we only can start changing things now because of this platform. Changing has been occurring all along. And some things have come in a small fashion, some things have come in a bigger fashion. But I don't want to disregard the people whose faces that I'm looking at right now on this screen and say that we all haven't been working very hard. And I'm not saying that to put a pat on the back. I'm saying that because hard work deserves the recognition, and we're not quitting. We're not quitting. Just because a new pathway has been developed doesn't mean that that we're going to forget everything else or how we've got here and etc. So again, once we are blessed to have new people both in administration as well as on our board, and the team, which has been defined as 9+1. And I have always said it's 9+1 plus, because everybody who's on this screen contributes to the education of children in some way, shape, or form, and as well as beyond all of this. So, let's not just feel that, gang ho, let's go forward and, blah, blah, blah. Yes, of course, we have to do that. But, y'all have worked hard and you deserve praise. And I want to thank everybody here for all that you've done for children, parents, staff, for our district and our city. And I honestly want to say I'm very proud to be part of this team. Thank you, Ms. Wilson.
Thank you.
If I can, Miss Wilson.
Go ahead, Miss. Go ahead, Miss Telfair.
Thank you. I'll keep my comments brief because I think a lot of the things have already been said. We're not voting on this tonight, so I don't feel like I need to say whether I'm for or against it, but I think it's really important. And I'm thankful for Mr. Carter for bringing it up because what we do have to acknowledge as a county, we are not doing well when it comes to COVID-19. And I think we are going to have to consider the possibility of returning or starting remote. That might even be decided for us by the time we get to opening schools, if we think about what our experience was like back in March. But I will say that, I don't want the concerns of people to go unnoticed when it comes to areas like making sure that we have all the technology devices for each student, that we address special education and making sure that we're reaching the most vulnerable population of our students. And so I am, happy that we can have public comment on this subject matter next week to be able to hear the concerns. But I also understand that, you're always going to have the side that's in favor of, going back to school remotely, and the side that's not in favor of going back to school or starting remotely. And somebody, will lose that battle. But I think it's really, really important that, for those that are concerned most, that their concerns are valid and heard, especially when it comes to some of the things that in areas that we, weren't able to really do well in, you know, in the original time when school was shut down. And I know special education and students with IEPs and 504s and needs that can't necessarily be met during remote learning, that those concerns are heard, and that we use this time to be able to address those things. So, I want to support this, the work that Mr. Carter did in bringing this up, the leadership that he did in bringing this up, but I also want to be able to hear and address the concerns of those that this might affect in a different way. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
I would very quickly just like to add that the resolution very specifically points out, and instructs the superintendent to address those concerns that you were speaking of. So passing the resolution would put in place, a unified voice and provide direction for the superintendent to, make those priority concerns as it relates to, our board superintendent relationship.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Carter. Any other board members who haven't spoken yet?
Ms. Wilson, this is
Go ahead.
Veronica.
Go ahead.
There is no plan. There's no plan in this world that's going to work for all families, but we still have all families to provide for. We have children that are homeless, and we have children with IEPs, children with ELS. We got all kinds of children. And I cannot say that giving them all a computer, and whether or not they even have a computer, because from what I hear, there are still a lot of children who don't have computers in their home. In a best case scenario, if we can guarantee that electronic device will be in the hands of every family in the Pittsburgh public schools before we pass this resolution, or getting us the information we need before we even think about passing the resolution, keeps us from being irresponsible. I've ran into a lot of parents this summer who still don't have computers. So if there are any parents out there who need to call me, 412-513-6136, and tell me whether or not they got electronic devices in their home for learning, I'm willing to step in the gap, because it will be wrong to leave them out. There is just no way one size is going to fit all, And I don't think we should talk like it is. Now, also parents who can volunteer to ride their kids to school, or can they take carpools? There are many different avenues to still look at before we give up. So we just have to keep doing the work, keep doing the hard work, keep talking to people, keep listening to people, and keep providing educational opportunities for all children, not just some, but for all. Thank you.
Thank
Very quickly, I would like to say that I think the only irresponsible thing for us to do is to put kids in school buildings. That's irresponsible, especially when all the details of what that looks like are not, fully ironed out. I think it would be irresponsible for us to put the burden of having to do blended in-classroom instruction and remote learning instruction on our administrators and teachers is irresponsible when they are already overworked. So when we talk about irresponsibility, this is the definition of irresponsibility. I know it's not the most ideal thing. Everybody would prefer to be in a classroom building, but public health trumps what we want as individuals. I refuse to make a child do something that I wouldn't do. I don't plan on stepping in school buildings this fall, and so I shouldn't vote to make somebody's child do what I would not do, and nobody should. I think that we all, if we are saying that we take this crisis seriously, we need to demonstrate that through our vote. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Carter. I think we've heard from everybody. I think. Is there anyone that has not had a chance to speak on this item at all? All right, thank you. Mr. Weiss.
Ms. Wilson,
Go ahead.
Dr. Hamlet did just give me a number for parents to call if their student does not have an electronic device. That number is 412-529-4357. 412-529-4357 for any parent who does not have an electronic learning device in their home provided by the school district of Pittsburgh. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Hamlet. Thank you, Ms. Edwards. Anyone else? All right, Mr. Weiss, this is what I want to ask. Now, the resolution was going to be up for vote 17.02, but we had a motion and that was made by Mr. Carter and seconded by Mr. Udine. The motion was to present this resolution today, wait for the public to comment, and then vote on this resolution at the special legislative meeting. If we vote on this motion, is that the same as we would have had a roll call for 17.02?
No, the motion is to place this on the agenda for the special public meeting. So that if the motion passes and it appears it will, then this will be on the agenda for formal board action on August 4th, which will follow the public comment period on July 29th, which is required by the Sunshine Act.
Okay, so voting for this today, voting for this now, we're voting for this motion and it'll be on the agenda on August 4th, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Did I hear somebody asking a question?
No, I just moved to call the question.
Okay, thank you. Well, we were trying to get to that, Mr. Carter. All right, Mr. Weiss, we're going to vote on this motion.
Mr. Carter?
Yes.
Ms. Edwards?
Yes.
Ms. Falls?
Yes, I vote on the motion.
Gallagher? Mr. Gallagher?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Harbin?
Yes.
Mrs. Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Talferro?
Yes.
Mr. Udine?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
All right, thank you so much. All right, Mr. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Dean, okay, it would have been more proper for you to have a resolution to us prior to today, but go ahead and present your resolution.
Thank you. Did everyone receive the resolution?
I didn't see it.
Did other board members receive it? The resolution on John Lewis?
It was in the email, Mr. Udine. I saw it.
Well,
I saw it.
I'm working all day. I'm looking to see if it's in there now. For it now. Go ahead, Mr. Dean.
Thank you. Resolution of the Pittsburgh Public Schools Board of Directors honoring the life of Congressman John R. Lewis, 1940 to 2020. Raised on a sharecropping farm in rural Alabama, sharecropping has been described as a life one step removed from chattel slavery. Up with the rising sun, work hard all day, don't stop till night darkness won't let you see. Can't see in the morning till can't see at night. Young John walked away from the sharecropping farm to join the movement where he could say something and do something to make life better for all the people he left behind, unable to vote, unable to get an education. Encouraged, drawn by the leadership of a young Georgia preacher, Martin Luther King Jr., John quickly rose as a leader in the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee as it was elected as its national chairman in 1963 at the age of just 23. He was the youngest leader invited to be a keynote speaker at the 1963 March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. For years, John thundered, when you see something that is not right, not fair, not just, you have a moral obligation to say something,
Right.
to do something.
To do something.
John dedicated his future life to the leadership of making trouble, good trouble, from the cotton fields of Alabama to the marbled halls of the United States Congress's 5th District of the state of Georgia. There, John continued his leadership, which led him to become known as the conscience of Congress, a post he held for 30 years. American apartheid abridged the 1965 Bloody Sunday on the Edmund Pettus Bridge, which was named for a former Confederate general and Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan, to Pettus's great-great-granddaughter, Caroline Randall Williams, who in the year 2020 stopped by to ask, you want a Confederate monument? My body is a Confederate monument. We certainly support the call to rename that bridge the John R. Lewis Bridge. The Pittsburgh Public Schools Board of Directors is made proud by the PPS students, supported by PPS progressive teachers and staff who followed John Lewis's call to wade in the water. In the name of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and the freedom martyrs who declare Black Lives Matter, we agree. John Lewis's life mattered. Thank you.
All right, thank you. It's kind of not written exactly as a resolution, but I guess what you're trying to say is that the Pittsburgh Board of Public Education is in support of honoring this great man and what he did for all of us throughout his life. Is that correct?
That is correct, because John Lewis was not a typical kind of brother.
No, I don't think he was. All right, Mr. Weiss, how do we proceed?
Is a motion in order to adopt this resolution?
We have a motion and a second, Ms. Wilson.
Okay, I need a second.
I'll second.
Ms. Kennedy seconded. We got a second from Mrs. Kennedy.
I'd like to comment.
All right, go ahead.
This first of all, the resolution is also, in addition to what you summarized, Ms. Wilson, it's also saying that we support the rename the bridge that he marched over that's named after a Confederate person to rename in his honor. And I think that's very appropriate. Mr. Lewis, or should I say Congressman Lewis, was one of my heroes. And a lot of times you don't get to meet your heroes. I had the opportunity to meet him 4 years ago when he was in the Pittsburgh area for a weekend. Bunch of different things he attended that weekend. And I know I'm not the only one here who has pictures with him, but I feel blessed to have had that opportunity because he's such, he may have been quiet that afternoon, but he stood in very big shoes, and his shoes, as big as they are going to be difficult to fill. And I was very upset last winter when I heard about his cancer diagnosis. I knew the prognosis wasn't good, but every day he managed to survive despite that prognosis was an extra day we had him in our lives to inspire us. And, you know, up until the end, he was fighting. Certainly now he's still fighting. He was fighting in his last week for voting rights. That's still a fight. It should have been resolved years ago, but yet here it is again. And I can't say enough good things about him, so I thank Mr. Udine for bringing this resolution forward. And just hearing the resolution and talking about him bringing tears to my eyes. And may his memory be a blessing forever. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amen.
Anyone else want to comment on this?
This is Veronica.
Go ahead.
I too agree with the resolution. He did come to town, I think, a year or two ago with the Black Caucus, and he gave a speech at the Ebenezer Baptist Church on Wiley Avenue on the Hill. And it gave us all a great opportunity to not only learn from him, but to meet him. And I'm glad I had the opportunity to meet such a powerful man. I agree with Mr. Udine's resolution.
Comments from any other board members at this time? All right, then I think we all agree, and I think we can move forward with the vote. Mr. Weiss?
Mr. Carter?
Affirmative.
Ms. Edwards?
Absolutely.
Ms. Falls?
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher?
Yes, and thank you, Mr. Dean.
Thank you. Ms. Harvin?
Yes.
Mrs. Kennedy?
Yes.
Alan Farrow?
Yes.
Mr. Udine?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Resolution's approved.
All right, thanks. All right, before we move into announcements, Mr. Dean, you had asked about talking about school openings beyond this, the health and safety plan. The whole point of having the August 4th legislative meeting, special legislative meeting, is to talk more about that. And as you see, the resolution that we passed this evening brings that to the forefront. Do you have any additional questions about that at this time? Mr. Udine?
Yes, I'd like to know whether or not the administration plans to bring forward a plan for the board to approve to cover those educational items that are not included in health and safety.
Dr. Hamlin?
Yes, I think we will bring a plan for. We already have plans developed as online, fully online was already a choice of one of the options of ours anyway. So the online option is fully there. Now, any specifics to that, I'm not sure what you mean, but if you send us the information, we'll make sure we answer your specific questions about the plan that we have moving forward.
I will forward you an outline of some ideas that I think ought to be included in the plan, and look forward to your response.
Thank you. Will do.
All right, thank you. All right, at this time, we've come to, is that a question? All right, okay. At this time, this is the part of the legislative meeting where we have announcements made that don't require a vote. And I do know someone has already reached out. Miss Telefero has already indicated that she has something to announce.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Just two quick things. First, I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge and recognize many of our incredible Pittsburgh Public School students, both past and present, who have been fighting on the front lines for social justice and screaming and crying Black Lives Matter. And the reason why I wanted to bring that up is because I think it's been very inspiring to see so many young people using their voices and demanding that we address the racial injustices that plague our systems and our structures. And they are out there leading the protests. They are out there speaking out and advocating for their rights and their lives. And I think that deserves to be acknowledged. And I wanted to lift up two organizations in particular that I've seen really fighting and lead a lot of our students. And so I'd like to acknowledge One Hood Media and the Women and Girls Foundation Woke Up programs. And these are just among many who I think are really out there working with our youth and helping them to use their voices and advocate for justice. And I also want to acknowledge our PPS student voices that participate in the Black Student Unions. And so today, in honor of those students, I am rocking my Black Lives Matter t-shirt from the Pittsburgh Sci-Tech fundraiser for the Black Student Union there. And I know also there were a couple of different protests and organizing efforts that were done from other BSU programs, including Alder Dice and Kappa. There was one that was originally scheduled. And so I just want to thank our students because they are our future. And I think they deserve to be acknowledged for their fight and for the work that they are doing to change things for the better. And then the second thing I wanted to give just a brief update to the public on the resolution that I introduced last month, the Reimagined School Safety Resolution that was introduced by myself and Ms. Harbin in the June legislative session. The resolution that we put forth was not voted on last month, and we have been working with the Dr. Hamlin and administration to get a public safety, school safety workshop scheduled for, sorry, I didn't like some on the words today, but we're trying to get a public safety workshop or school safety workshop scheduled for the coming months. And I think I wanted to make sure to acknowledge that. And the hope is that after that workshop, we will be able to reintroduce this resolution for a board vote. So I think that was really important to put out to everybody. I think in the coming week, we will have a specific date planned for said workshop. And obviously we'll have our normal safety committee meeting with board participation and administration staff to discuss what that workshop will include. So as the safety committee chair, I think it's really important that we just continue to address these things and make sure that we are making our schools and our students not only just feel safe, but to be safe and to make sure that we are educating them. And they can't be educated if they're not in the classroom. So I think that's really important. I think that's it for me. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Farrell. All right, Ms. Falls.
Ms. Wilson. I just would like to share some things that, you know, we are in an era where we have this discussion about charter schools and the funding and et cetera. And I'm not going to go into reading the preface. It should go before this. I just want the public to know that the Pittsburgh Pittsburgh School Board has been part of the 265 districts across the state who has joined in a resolution that was sent to Harrisburg to look at and review the funding for the charter schools. It's much more involved than that, but we're out of time. The other thing I just want to say is that we are working right now on a scholarship fund that PSBA has awarded to our district. It's a $1,200 scholarship, and more details will follow, and it will be brought up in the August meeting. We have established our voting delegates that represent Pittsburgh in the statewide conference for the school boards, the Pennsylvania School Board Association. And again, I want to salute and thank our military, past, present, and future. Thank you, Ms. Wilson.
Thank you, Ms. Falls. All right, are there any other board members that have any announcements tonight?
Ms. Harbin?
Go ahead, Ms. Harbin.
I just wanted to, Ms. Farrow mentioned the students that were protesting and raising their voices. I just kind of wanted to lift up the school staff that is still keeping in touch with our students. So my son is in the Black Student Union at Alderdice, and the teachers are still engaging them through the summer. And, you know, I know that there are other teachers that are still, you know, reaching out and talking to their students. Believe it or not, they're using Teams, which turns out that's a really great platform to keep in touch with people. And they are using that. So I just wanted to give a shout out to all of our hardworking staff that had a really hard time, I know, with this conversion to whatever we did, and are, you know, stressed out now, but are still keeping in touch with students and families. I also want to give a shout out to our board administrator, Miss Laura Getty. This has been a really hard time, I think, for her, because our public hearings are like quadruple the size that they normally were. And she's one person managing a lot of that work, and there's a lot that goes into it. And she, Ms. Getty, is available for 9 board members to ask her to do 9 million different things every day. And I just want to give her a shout out and say that I appreciate her. And I just want to say to all the families, you know, thank you for being patient. I have not responded to every email and message that I've received yet, and I apologize for that. But you know, there's so much uncertainty right now, and I don't want to share information if I don't know the answers. But you know, I just want everybody to be, to understand that we are working through every single one of your questions. We're reading them. We're, discussing them as a board. We're discussing stuff with administration every week. There are no roadmaps for this work, and it's really difficult. So we're all working very hard, and I know that the uncertainty at home is very hard. I'm a parent, and the uncertainty for my kids is, stress-inducing. So everybody is stressed out, and I understand it, but I appreciate everybody being patient, but I also appreciate everybody sending in your questions and comments because it's all very important. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harbin. Are there any other board members that have any announcements at this time?
Just want to give a shout out. I want to welcome Dr. Robert Frioni to Perry Academy and to the North Side on his return to the Pittsburgh Public Schools. We're going to help him do great things, and we're going to help the families of North Side and help them to continue to expect great things from the Pittsburgh Public Schools. So to him, I say thank you for coming. To the district, thank you for hiring him. I've talked to him. He's very excited and enthusiastic, and we're going to help him be the best that he can be along with our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Edwards. Any other board members?
Terry, I'd like to thank everybody who's been looking for an answer yesterday for their patience. And I realize not all of them have been as patient as we would like. And I can speak for myself, but I also know other people have felt the same way. We're trying to make plans in a ever-evolving situation. And if we had made a definite plan 2 weeks ago, it would probably be obsolete by now, or partially obsolete. So it is really hard with how the situation's evolving to say how things should be at any one specific time. So I know I've received contact from a lot of people, not just, families and staff members, and it would be great if we could give you a solid answer at any one time. But being, obviously by paying attention to our discussion, if you're watching this, you realize it's not a cut and dry issue. There are many points of view and many details to consider. So I thank you for your willingness to put up with us and realizing that we are trying to do what's best for as what we can do what's best based on the information we have at hand, and realizing that one solution does not best for everyone. So we have to shoot for what's best for what we believe is best for the majority of the people at the time, and know that everybody will not be happy regardless of any decision. And to please bear with us. But more importantly, thank you for your concern and your input, because if we don't hear from you, we can't say that we know how you feel. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Kennedy. Anyone else? All right.
Ms. Wilson, for your wonderful patience. You've been a gem. Thank you so very much.
I'm a gem.
You're a gem.
Well, thank you so much, Ms. Falls. I do have one announcement. I just wanted to, I've maybe have talked about this before in past years, but the Church of the Holy Cross has a summer program for youth called Act Your Best. This summer, they're working with high school students from grades 9 through 12. They're giving them virtual instruction on webpage design, video production, music instruction, and on Fridays, Civic Engagement Day. And we've had elected officials, union members speaking with the children about career paths and what their jobs are entailed. But the reason I'm saying this today, announcing this today, is because this Friday we have the United States Air Force Thunderbirds making a special presentation for our students. And actually, we've opened it up to the public. We've opened it up to adults as well as any young people who might be interested that will talk about this as a career path. If we weren't in COVID-19, the Thunderbirds actually were going to do a flyover Homewood, but unfortunately, because of this situation, they're unable to do that. But if anyone would like to have, like personally, to be involved in the Thunderbirds program this Friday, it starts at 1 o'clock, and it will be on Microsoft Teams. Those people are not happy about it. It's been working well, but just send an email to AV, like audio visual, AV at historichcpa.org. That's AV at historichcpa.org. Just send an email and say you would like to be a part of the program. An email will be sent back to you with a link, and all you have to do is click on the link, and you will be able to participate in this, by the way, first time ever virtual program with the Thunderbirds. So if any of you can join in, I encourage you to do so, no matter what age. AV at historichcpa.org. All right, thank you. And I was hoping I was last, so that I can now say that at this time I'd like to have a motion in a second to adjourn.
So moved, Terry.
Okay, Mrs. Kennedy. And that Miss Delapero, maybe?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Ayes have it. Motion. This meeting is now adjourned.